First take breaking news from Adam Schefter tweeting this offseason the Packers offered Aaron Rodgers a 2-year contract extension that would have tied him to Green Bay for 5 more seasons and made him the highest paid quarterback and player in football. Rodgers declined that offer. Proof it's not about the money. Good morning, everybody. Welcome into First Take. Stephen A., I will start with you here. Does this mean Rodgers leaves the Packers?
Well, first things first. Good morning to both of you.
Good morning.
Secondly, you know what? It's not proof that he's going to leave the Packers because, again, they still have his rights, at least for another year, when ultimately if they made the decision to depart from him, it would be cap friendly to the Green Bay Packers. But once again, you know, this is the kind of thing I have to admit. I saw this story. I saw this breaking news from the great Adam Schefter himself, and I was utterly disgusted. And it was not just at the Green Bay Packers, Molly and Max. It's at all of these NFL aficionados, people that we have working here at this network, people that we have that we see working on the NFL and beyond at other networks and what have you. All the people that have been connected with the National Football League, who's played in the National Football League, who walks around acting like they don't understand a damn thing that I'm saying. The bottom line is this. This is proof of what I've been talking about for months. It's not about football. It's not just about the money. It's not just, and it certainly isn't about football. The Green Bay Packers were 13-3 in back-to-back years under Matt LaFleur as the head coach. They went to back-to-back NFC championship games, which means they were a part of the Final Four for 2 consecutive years. What idiot out there would possibly think this is football? This is not about football. This is about the way that the Green Bay Packers have treated their star player. They have disregarded him. They have dismissed him. They have minimized him. They've disrespected him. And he said, bump y'all. Enough's enough. And to me, to watch and listen to people who are experts on the National Football League, who know football back and forth, who I'm proud to call colleagues, who have forgotten more football than I will ever know, but are prideful men who would speak eloquently and ad nauseum about the need, the zest, the craving for respect, to act like you can't comprehend what the hell Aaron Rodgers has been saying all of these months, this entire offseason, is beyond me. He doesn't want to be a part of the Packers organization because we've seen the evidence from Mark Murphy, who tried to put a different spin on it weeks ago and tried to throw it back on Aaron Rodgers. We know that Matt LaFleur is known for passing the buck and deferring to other people in terms of accountability, which is something else that has turned Aaron Rodgers off. We know Brian Gutekunst is nothing more than an extension of Mark Murphy because he likes his job and he wants to keep it. They have disrespected this man, and you're not buying him off. And this latest story just proves all they're trying to do is recreate a narrative. They knew that Aaron Rodgers wasn't interested in the money. They just did it for public consumption so the rest of us will buy that they want to keep him so they could cover themselves instead of dealing with the accountability that they have for mistreating that man. Period.
It's not just about the money. I think money's part of respect. I get the point, Stephen A. It's a larger respect issue. But to me, it's larger than that even. It's not just about the front office respecting Aaron Rodgers. At this point, this is what it's about. And Murphy and Gutekunst have to get through this through their head. And in fact, I'd love for them just to repeat after me. Aaron Rodgers is my boss. That's what they have to say. They have to say it publicly, not just to Aaron Rodgers. Hold a press conference and say together in unison, Aaron Rodgers is our boss, because that's what he is. Let me explain how I mean this. Rodgers' mind will decide his future, and only Rodgers' mind. The contract he has with the Packers is worth nothing. There's not a single thing they can do to make him play football. And he has a lot of options in his career. He could sit out 1 year. Why would they never do that? Because they could get at least 3 first-round draft picks and other stuff for Rodgers. So if your choices, and you know he has lots of options, and your choices are a bounty like you can't believe to rebuild your franchise, and it's already very good except at quarterback if he leaves, or nothing, who in their right mind would take nothing? Now, I know it rankles NFL people for someone to kind of like step out of line because it's a military game with military roots, West Point. And it's a war game, right? You're taking territory and all this stuff. And so they don't like insubordination. They like everyone to know their place, and the players stay here, and the general managers here, and so on. But things have changed. The quarterback is so important now that Tom Brady's the boss. Aaron Rodgers is the boss. And it doesn't come to this in Kansas City because it doesn't have to. Patrick Mahomes is the boss. But certainly Rodgers is. And this reminds me, I have one more point to make. Sure. This reminds me of Dan Gilbert with LeBron. Mm-hmm. Dan Gilbert was under the impression he was calling the shots. Remember how his little temper tantrum letter he wrote after LeBron left, as though Cleveland had done a single thing for LeBron? Every owner would have done the same thing if they had LeBron James. Then he got it through his head eventually. Okay, I got it. LeBron's the boss. It was too little, too late. They should not make that mistake here. Rodgers is probably gone, but they should at least try to change his mind. He is the deciding one, and they have to try to get him to change his mind about them. Here's number 2. Stephen A., could you imagine this? I know, like, everyone's thinking Denver, if it's the AFC. If it's the NFC, the Saints still haven't named a starting quarterback, right? If it's the NFC and it's the Saints, could you imagine? I brought up if he goes to if he goes to Denver, him and Mahomes and Herbert in the same division. Could you imagine him and Brady in the same division? Rodgers in a dome with
now
those
you're talking,
weapons
Mac.
and that team? Oh, my God.
I like that thought experiment. Let's bring in our quarterback, Dan Orlovsky. And Dan, I see your face at that suggestion, but obviously a lot said here. But I want to get your reaction to what Adam Schefter just spoke on. And Stephen A. says it's not about the money. He's been saying this for a while. You heard Max. Yeah. He's saying that Aaron Rodgers is the guy that has the power. The mantra for Packers owners should be Aaron Rodgers is our boss. What is your perspective?
Where's the line of demarcation for both parties? This is the second significant to rectify the situation, which is what Max is saying you tried. They've tried. Go back months ago when this story broke on NFL Live from Schefter, and he stated that they had sent the president and the general manager and the head coach out west to meet with Aaron Rodgers multiple times. That didn't work. Now the news comes out that they've offered this significant contract extension that not only gives him a ton of money and gives him the respect of being the highest paid player in football, but also the control over his career, that he could end his career with the team he started. And he said no. So what else can they actually try? But the line of demarcation has got to be for both parties, Aaron and the Green Bay Packers, of we won't go below this. We're not going to get what we want. This is like a divorce, I would imagine, that both sides want what they want, but they're not going to get that. So how do you give each side something? Each side is going to have to get something out of this. Aaron's not going to get exactly what Aaron wants. The Packers aren't going to get exactly what the Packers want. But who's going to be the party or the person to get them something? Because the fans, and I think Greeny said this morning, they're like the kids, sitting there going, wait, what? We want both. You guys got to figure this out, all that stuff. And they're not going to be happy at the end of the day, no matter what the result is. And the thing that I keep getting back to is this. If Aaron Rodgers plays this year, it's his last year as a Green Bay Packer. If Aaron Rodgers doesn't play this year, he's done. So why are the Packers waiting? Last April to draft Jordan Love. You were planning on this. If Aaron Rodgers didn't win MVP, you would have traded him. If he was just okay last year, you would have traded him. So why the hesitation now? You made your bed. And at the end of the day, they're going to have to figure out what's the line for each party to get some. Because I don't expect, even if Aaron comes back and plays some games for the Packers, I don't expect this to be a very good football team or a championship caliber football team, what it should have been, because of what this offseason has looked like.
Dan Orlovsky, work with me here for a second and hold on for a minute, Max, because I want to work with this former NFL quarterback who's now an extraordinary analyst for our network, Dan Orlovsky. Work with me for a second here, Dan. So you're Dan Orlovsky, and you've been in a town for a decade and a half. You've been a superstar, a multiple-time winning league MVP, a Super Bowl champion, et cetera, et cetera. Dan Orlovsky, you come into my office and you make suggestions, and I tell you to shut up and leave. You come into my office and I say, excuse me, you play, we run the organization. Now get the hell out of here. You sit up there and you say stuff like, excuse me, this is our organization. You work for us. Live with that reality. That's what the situation is. I'm not quoting anybody exactly, but you've been around the league long enough and got enough context to know that I know what the hell I'm talking about, and I'm basically highlighting what Aaron Rodgers has endured. These are facts. Dan Orlovsky, if a boss treats you like that, what can they do for you at this point in time in your career if you're Aaron Rodgers and you know the money is elsewhere, and on top of it all, you could retire, and on top of it all, you could possibly get $10 million a year hosting Jeopardy? Not to say that that's a viable option for you, but you know that you pretty much have the gamut out there. What in God's name could that same organization that spent years mistreating you do for you, Dan Orlovsky? Could you answer that question for me?
Absolutely nothing. Absolutely nothing. You have already told me by your words and your actions what you truly think about me. And so I'm done with you. And here's the thing.
All right, so
you got the
hold on, Dan. Hold on, Dan.
ego, whether you like.
Hold on, Dan.
Go ahead.
Let me go to this second question. Because of that reality, what are we to make of this offer? Because if you know it and I know it, they damn sure knew it, right? When they made this latest offer. So what was the intent in making that offer, Dan Orlovsky?
CYA? Just a huge CYA move to cover themselves because they realized, we made a wrong decision. How do we try to make that wrong decision right? And that's why the contract offer has been extended, because everybody's ticked off. Our players are ticked off. Our coaches ticked off. Our fans are ticked off. We made a mistake. Maybe we'll throw money at them. The thing is, Stephen A., when it comes to elite people, and you know that you can't buy love. You just can't buy love. And they tried to do that with Aaron Rodgers. We made all these mistakes. Here, we'll give you money. Does that make it right? No, it doesn't. Does that make it okay? No, it doesn't. Does that take it away?
Max.
No, it doesn't.
No, Dan, I disagree with you. They're not trying to buy it. I am accusing the Green Bay Packers of doing this for nothing more than public consumption. They know damn well he wasn't going to sign. He wasn't going to accept that offer. They know damn well he wants out. They know he wants nothing to do with them. They know he's done with them. They did it to make themselves look good in the eyes of the public so they could say, we did all we could to cover the years of ineptitude as leaders that they had over this man and this franchise. They did it to cover themselves. They knew he would not accept this. That's what I'm accusing the Green Bay Packers of. Max, is yours. Max, the floor is yours.
That's clearly what happened. That's clear. What your analysis of it, I don't see another interpretation. But I'll say this. The real issue is they still haven't gotten it through their heads. If I were Murphy or Gutekunst, I would tell Rodgers privately, look, we're from the old school. This is the way it's always been done in the NFL. We screwed up, and things have changed. And we recognize they've changed, and we recognize our mistakes. Now, I would also say stuff publicly. Not just, they flew the president in and they're going to talk to him. No, I would also do it publicly. Admit, we screwed up. Rodgers is the guy. We're going to do everything in our power to do it. That's the first thing. That's the public humility that they have yet to show. Because they're more interested, Dan, I agree with Stephen A., in covering their tracks, right? They're more interested in making a big show of the fact that they can back channel it, of the fact that they made this big offer, than they are in truly doing what it takes to keep Aaron Rodgers, because they find it humiliating. But it's only humiliating if you lack the proper humility. And if they do, they shouldn't be running the organization.
That's the bottom line.
I would say this. If the Packers are making that contract extension offer to publicly save face, then they should be ready to make a move as well. There should be the moment where you say, okay, we are going to move on from Aaron Rodgers, and we're going to get as much as we can, because we know a lot of things can happen this season. Like if they're making the contract offer extension and saying, we're just going to do it to show people that we tried and we know he's not going to take it and we're actually going to be ready to move on from him, then what happens if the offense doesn't perform to a standard this year, or Aaron suffers some kind of injury and doesn't play a ton, God forbid, or doesn't play as well as the MVP? Like, the value would go down. Whatever you think it may not, plummet, but it's going to go down. And I will go back to this, guys. You chose Jordan Love. You were already in the mindset that you were going to be ready to move on. I don't think Aaron Rodgers does all of this somewhat publicly and then comes back in a month and says, all right, I'm just going to play this season and we will figure it out. I just don't see that happen. I don't see him playing 17 games for the Packers. I don't see him sitting out this season. The Packers have to make this right in some capacity.
The only way they can make it right is to move on. But let me say this. I'm here right now in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Game 6 of the NBA Finals tonight. 2 hours or so. I've never been to Green Bay, so I'm told it's 2 hours or so from Milwaukee, a little less than 2 hours from Milwaukee. Aaron Rodgers, last time I checked, has a stake in this team. The Milwaukee Bucks are 48 minutes away from winning an NBA championship for the first time since 1971. And we don't know if Aaron Rodgers is going to be here or not. I hope he is. But if he doesn't come, in all likelihood, it's probably going to be because this is a divided camp here in this city and in this state. You've got some people who've sided with him, and you've got some people who have sided with the Green Bay Packers. And I would simply pose the question to the fans of the Green Bay Packers and to fans all over the state of Wisconsin. I would ask you this simple question. If you had enough money and you knew that your future was set and you knew that you had other teams that wanted you and you had to report to a boss that treated you like trash for years and you finally felt you were in a position to say enough's enough, what would you do? That's what I would ask the people here in Wisconsin to consider when we're thinking about Aaron Rodgers instead of looking at him as some ungrateful individual, not recognizing the fact that he carried this franchise on his back and his shoulders for a damn decade with little to no help other than cheese and Clay Matthews here do. That's about it. He was Aaron Rodgers, okay? And this franchise ignored them and treated him, I'm talking about the hierarchy, they treated him like trash. And the man said, enough's enough. What would you do if you were Aaron Rodgers? That's my point that I want everybody in Wisconsin to recognize. It's ridiculous. It really, really is. It's a damn shame what they've done to Aaron Rodgers, what that organization has done to treat Aaron Rodgers. It's really a shame.
Denver really or New Orleans? What are the odds? Denver or New Orleans? That's what I want to know.
Denver.
Sounds like more so Denver. Absolutely. Really strong conversation, guys. We'll have much more on this later in the show. Dan Orlovsky, excellent job as always. Your cartwheel, a little suspect. I saw that on Get Up. You got to work on that.
I thought it was a 9 out of 10 for a dad.
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
Like
Degree of difficulty,
right.
0. We'll leave it there. It's a lot of fun though. I love seeing those home videos. All right, guys, to the NBA. Stephen A was just talking about it. We have a game 6 tonight. Will we have a champion, or will Chris Paul and Devin Booker and the Suns force a game 7 back in Phoenix? Giannis can deliver the Bucks franchise their first Larry O'Brien since 71 when Kareem Abdul-Jabbar led the charge. That's a long time. Let's hear from both squads.
You can feel the excitement in the city, and last time we were in the NBA Finals was 1974, and it's been a while. So I'm happy that the fans are enjoying it. There's 20,000 people in the arena, 25,000 people outside the arena, but we got to focus. We got to do our job, and then they can do their job celebrating at the end.
Something that coach and everybody been saying, if you went to the beginning of the season and said we had a chance to be where we are right now, would you take it? Absolutely. Absolutely. And we get a chance to determine the outcome.
All right, Max, talk to me. Will we see the Bucks crowned champs, or will the Suns force a game 7? What do you think?
I think the Suns are going to force a game 7. And Stephen A, I have to admit, I may be leading with my heart here because I don't want to see Chris Paul go out like that. Not like he did in game 5. Not with one of the worst blunders I can remember in the finals. And that was awful. You're down 1 point. Giannis is good for the alley-oop, 15 seconds left. It'll be a 1-possession game, and you have the ball. And Devin Booker, between you and Devin Booker, and you keep talking about Cam Johnson, Stephen A. and Mikal Bridges, and you have a good chance to tie that game and send it into overtime at home. A good chance to still win the game, actually. And then you fouled a dangerous foul. Under other circumstances, it would be considered a cheap shot because he was up in the air. We know that's not what the intention was here. But a dangerous foul, and one of the dumbest things, so now they're up a possession, they're up 3 points, and they have the ball at the free throw line with 15 seconds left. You ended the game right there, basically. I don't want to see one of the greatest players that I've ever seen. You talk about diminutive guys, right? Certainly at the size, in Chris Paul go out like that. And I do think that the Suns are motivated, that the last two games, one in Phoenix, one in Milwaukee, came down to the wire and required all-time great plays out of the Bucks in order to preserve those wins. I see this series going 7. I always did. And that means the Suns now have to return the favor, get one on the road. And I'm predicting, Stephen A., whatever Chris Paul has seemed like to us so far, much like Game 6 of the conference finals. Let's not forget, he didn't look good until then. The team was performing worse with him than campaign at that point. He had one of the all-time great games to put him in the finals. I'm predicting the same thing for a Game 6 to put him into a Game 7.
I think it's over. I think Milwaukee closes out the deal tonight and wins in 6. I would tell you that I hope that I'm wrong. Because my heart is definitely with Phoenix and CP3 because I really, really would love to see them force a Game 7. And I love Game 7s, so that plays a lot in it. But where I veer left from you is that as bad as that foul was by CP3 on Giannis on the alley-oop dunk, to hold CP3 accountable to the degree that you're doing so, I'm not there with you. Clearly, it was not the wisest thing to do, and I'm certainly not saying that it is. But in the throes of action, you're thinking that somehow, some way, if you can foul him and force him to miss the dunk, then he has to go through the free throw line where he's shooting 59% from the free throw line this series. 39 of 66 from free throws. He's missed 27 of his 66 free throw attempts in this series. So he's hitting less than 60% of his free throws. Again, didn't seem that smart in the aftermath because you're looking at Greek Freak. He's 6'11". He's a specialist in terms of dunking the basketball. He's a high riser. He's a skywalker, and fouling him put him in. And it just didn't seem like the smart thing to do. But listening to CP3 post game, he said, "Yeah, I thought he would miss the free throws. Hell, he probably thought he would miss the free throws, et cetera, et cetera." So you're thinking that you were going to foul him before the dunk was actually made. It didn't turn out to be the wisest play in the world, but that was the thinking process, and I think basketball minds can understand that. In the end, though, here's what it comes down to. Milwaukee's bigger, they're stronger, they're deeper, and because of those three components, combined with the fact that Phoenix has its injuries to deal with, Saric, you're very thin on your front line. You've got DeAndre Ayton, he's all by his lonesome on the front court. All he's got his help is Jay Crowder. And any kind of zone that Monty Williams tries to implement. Even at the guard spot, CP3 is undersized because you got Drew Holiday or Middleton or PJ Tucker that you're throwing at him. All of those things point to Milwaukee ultimately closing the deal tonight in Game 6. And oh, by the way, just as an aside, Max and Molly, remember how we all thought it was 12 to 15,000 in Deer Park? And then I told y'all it was like 25,000? Apparently, they've made room now for over 60,000 people to be there tonight.
They'll get it, too.
So and they're going to get it, every living body. I mean, it's going to be 60,000 plus outdoors, and it's not going to even be standing room in this arena. It's straight fire here in Milwaukee. These peeps are ready, and I think Milwaukee answers the call, unfortunately, because obviously I would love to see a Game 7, but I don't think I will.
Ready for that champagne and confetti. All right, Bucks are favored by 5 tonight, guys. We'll leave it there. When we come back, Nick Saban, Jimbo Fisher, Ed Ogeron. They don't lose many games down in the SEC. So here, Greg Sankey has proposed a plan where COVID-19 won't lead to rescheduling football games. Sankey said the idea is that games won't be postponed and that he has recommended the conference remove the 53-man roster minimum that was put in place last year. Here, listen for yourself.
We still have roster minimums that exist, just like last year. What I've identified for consideration among our membership is we remove those roster minimums and you're expected to play as scheduled. That means your team needs to be healthy to compete. And if not, that game won't be rescheduled. And thus, to dispose of the game, the forfeit word comes up at this point. Our teams are going to have to be fully prepared to play their season as scheduled, which is why embedded in my remarks is the vaccination motivation.
Look who's here, my guy, Paul Feinbaum. My goodness, joining us from SEC Media Day. This is exciting. It feels like football season is almost here. Our friend is back. So good to see you, Paul.
Thank you, Molly. I missed all of you so much, so thanks for having me back.
Yeah, no, it's great. And we're in studio. Last time we talked to you, I was in my basement. So we're going in the right direction. At least Sankey also hopes to think so. So let me ask you this. If the SEC chooses to go down this path, would you have a problem with the SEC forfeiting games, Paul?
None whatsoever. I mean, we are in a different world than we were a year ago. And with the vaccine available, as the commissioner so eloquently put it yesterday, it's entirely up to the coaches and the players. And I think ultimately, Molly, this is a coaching decision. And I can tell you that most coaches that I'm aware, now these are not things that everyone is being forthcoming about, but most coaches that I'm aware have taken the vaccine. But I'm willing to bet you that there will be some coaches here this week at the SEC Media Days who haven't. And it will be very interesting to see what their rosters look like. Nick Saban was one of the first out doing a vaccine PSA. Others have done the same thing. But if you're a coach who is against the vaccine or who doesn't think it's a good idea, then how does that trickle down to your team? And the commissioner said yesterday that 6 of the SEC, there's 14 teams in the SEC, are at an 80% threshold right now. You need to be to 85% before you can go to remove protocols that we had in place, such as mask wearing and and regular testing. So it's on the players, but ultimately it is on the coaches, and it's going to be very interesting to hear what they have to say this week.
Paul, rather than give an opinion, I'd rather ask an abundance of questions to you, and Max can do whatever he chooses to do. But I'm just curious to know your perspective on a couple of things, and I'll go back and forth between myself and Max in asking you my questions. My first question would be this, Paul. When we talk about the coaches and how they've been tested, but there are some coaches who may not be. Obviously, there's some players that may not be. What are the specific obstacles that they're articulating to ensuring that everyone is vaccinated so you can minimize the level of concern as it pertains to this upcoming season?
Stephen A., what I've heard in the past from various coaches is simply that they have not wanted to interfere with the practice and the protocol. We heard this in baseball, and I'll get back to the football issue in a second. NC State got knocked out of the College World Series as they were reaching the final rounds because of an outbreak, and the coach said he had not been vaccinated, and he didn't want to push it on his players. He said, I don't want to get political. So I'm interested in a couple of coaches this week in particular. One, Mike Leach, who has been very outspoken in the past on political issues. And there's one or two others that I would like to hear from who I have been told have not been pushing or even encouraging the vaccine. You have to also remember something. I'm from the South. I don't live in Alabama anymore, but the political climate down here, not that this is news breaking to you, Stephen A., is completely different. The state of Alabama, where we currently reside right this moment, I think the vaccination rates are about 35%. You have everyone saying the right thing, but they're really not pushing it. So I think the coaches have been thrown have the gauntlet thrown down them by the commissioner yesterday, who's no nonsense. And I think that was the right message to send. But what are the coaches going to say? I know what a few of them are going to say, but there's a couple of other ones I have no earthly idea.
Yeah, Paul, I mean, we've seen that economist YouGov poll that came out that 15% of American adults apparently believe that it is probably true that the government's using vaccines to put microchips in people, and 5% think it's definitely true, meaning 20% are getting information from very, very bad sources. Is that really what we're dealing with here in terms of the resistance or the hesitancy to get vaccinated, just like people reacting to low quality information for the most part in your experience?
I think so. I know of one particular head coach who declined to get involved in the public service announcements. And if you won't do that, you probably won't be pushing your players to do it. And I think some of it is ideology, whether it's political or religious or whatever. Listen, I'm not here to tell anyone what to do. We've been down this road for a long time. You don't need a sports broadcaster to give a lecture on the pros and cons of vaccine. But ultimately, it's going to matter. I think what the commissioner said in terms of forfeiture is going to resonate for this reason. If you're a fan of Mississippi State or Auburn or Alabama or Florida, you care about one thing. You care about winning football games. And I know that sounds trite when we're talking about a pandemic that has shut the world down and is threatening to do it again. But where I live and in the waters that I swim in, there's really not much more important than winning an SEC football game. So you would think, Max, that might trickle down. So far, it has not.
Max Kellerman, I appreciate that note, because I'm not going to lie to you. I've never heard that. I'm not denying what you're saying that you've seen, Max. Please don't get me wrong. I'm just saying. I'm saying I appreciate the education, because I didn't know. I know microchip. I never heard that. I've never heard that. So
there's no end to the lunacy, Stephen A.
Yeah. Listen, man, I appreciate it, bro, because I certainly I'm educated. But Paul, I'll get back to you on this. According to the report, 6 of the 14 teams, if I remember correctly, have reached 80% vaccination. That means that the other 8 haven't. In the pro, when I think about pro sports, I'm of the mindset that's the private sector. And excuse me, if I'm the National Basketball Association, if I am the NFL, if I'm Major League Baseball, I can certainly mandate that any participants and any employees be vaccinated, otherwise you ain't coming to work. I think I can make a case for that, and I can get away with it. I'm not so sure you could do that to college sports. I'd like to know what your thought process is about that, Paul, and how plausible do you think it is that the SEC specifically can get to that point to ensure that we're going to have some games and there's not going to be postponements or, dare I say, forfeitures?
Stephen, I don't think there's much more that can be done than what we heard yesterday. And you remember, when the commissioner starts off this media carnival, he tries to set the tone. And Greg Sankey isn't just a commissioner of a league. He has now been installed by those of us in the media who cover it as the most influential person in the sport. So he did not shirk his responsibility yesterday. He met it head on. And I just don't know, though, whether some of these coaches really care. I know I'm contradicting what I said a minute ago about the fans wanting to win and lose, but unless they're confronted with it, I think they'll stay the course, because we are now, it's July 20th, Stephen A. This vaccine has been available since December. And really since probably early spring, readily available to anyone who wanted it. And I don't know what left there is to be determined. If you're the head coach of a major college football power, what more do you need to know? Do you need to call Dr. Fauci for a personal Zoom meeting to be told the pros and cons? It's all out there. You've already made up your mind.
Paul, let me follow up by asking you this question. Do you believe that these coaches are some of the people that Max has alluded to, some of the people that we've alluded to? Or do you believe that they've been vaccinated, they're just petrified because of the political climate there in the South? They're petrified to speak out about this in a more positive fashion. What are your thoughts about that?
I think in 1 or 2 specific cases, the coaches have not been vaccinated. Now, again, I'm giving you an opinion. It's not like I'm privy to that information, nor should I be. But it's not hard to discern this information. A coach either does a public service announcement and encourages people to be vaccinated, or he doesn't say anything. And I know that in Journalism 101 is not to deduct or to assume, but I'm going to assume, Stephen A., that if a head football coach comes here and doesn't want to answer that question, there's a pretty good reason for it. The politics are at play, though. There's no getting around that. And I think some coaches are cognizant of that, but let's look at, and I know people get tired of hearing Nick Saban being preached by people like me. But Nick Saban was the first out last year. He was the first to put on a mask. He was the first to do a commercial. He was very early on doing a public service announcement in the state of Alabama, where this guy could be elected governor by acclamation. So I just think you have to look at that, and I'm curious this week, and we're a day or two away from a couple of these coaches that I'm referring to. What are they going to use as their example? Are they going to say it's a private issue? It's not a private issue any longer after the commissioner made it a public issue. So we don't know everything yet. We're going to know a lot more in a day or two. And if a coach comes out here and says, I just think it's a personal choice, that's a whole nother conversation. And I also want to make it clear, I'm not here advocating anything other than people be responsible. But if I'm a football player at a particular school and my coach has not been vaccinated, what type of message does that send?
Paul, I want to get you bring up Saban as a role model, as an example, particularly given the environment in which he's operating. But Saban has the championships, the credibility, the love, the adulation. Someone like Greg Sankey, who's in a position of authority, people love to take shots and complain about those people, right? In that environment, to go ahead and to do what he is doing, and he was even explicit about it. He's trying to encourage people to do it. What does that say about his leadership? You said that you and your peers in the college football media voted him the most influential figure in college football. What does it say about his leadership that, given that climate, he has taken this position?
I think it says a lot, Max. I think it says that Greg Sankey, as the commissioner of the SEC, has embraced that role and is using his bully puppet. He could have easily come here yesterday and said, listen, we all know about the Delta variant. We all know what's out there. But ultimately, it's up to the individual schools and coaches. He didn't say that. I mean, he laid his fist on the table and essentially said, get vaccinated or lose football games. Now, he said that before in a less important and influential environment, but there can be no. He doesn't have a bigger stage than the one he had yesterday. It's covered live on television in this part of the country. It's disseminated by hundreds of reporters, and it's being discussed right here.
Paul, before I let you go, you brought up Sankey in very accurate and eloquent terms. Obviously, you also brought up Nick Saban, and we all know what position that he's taken. What else do you think can be done on the part of coaches and obviously the SEC commissioner, who clearly have been vaccinated? We can deduce that has happened where they're concerned. What do you think they could do, if anything at all, to influence these coaches to take a more strident position as it pertains to making sure they get vaccinated, or particularly when you put the SEC season on the line right in front of their faces? What can be done?
Stephen, it's a great question with not much of an answer from me, because I personally think that Greg Sankey has talked to every one of these coaches. He's had them in his office. They've discussed this. I think the onus is now on them, because there's just nothing more that can be shoved down someone's throat in relation to the vaccine that it already hasn't been done. It's obviously a personal choice. And by the way, I respect if somebody's against it, fine. But there's more at stake here than my ideology, than my political views. What's at stake here is a college football season that nearly was wrecked last year. We were sitting here together a year ago having that conversation. We got through it barely, and nobody wants to see that happen again.
No, 6 of the 14 SEC teams have reached 85% vaccination. SEC football kicks off September 2nd, but I think what you said, Paul, is so astute. Folks have already made up their mind as to whether they were going to take the vaccine or not. I don't know how much swaying will occur without specific incentives. Paul, thank you so much. So great to see you. We will talk to you soon. Paul Feinbaum with the latest from SEC Media Day. When we return here on First Take, he's been calling the Dallas Cowboys Christmas because they're the gift that keeps on giving, and he's the Grinch. Stephen A's must-see reaction to Big D being featured on HBO's Hard Knocks. Yes, I am here for that.
Howdy. How you doing? I ain't no damn Cowboys game. What can go wrong will go wrong. I'm really sorry. You lucky I took time out of my schedule to be here. Y'all don't win nothing. I'm saying it again for you.
Mr. Smith. The Dallas Cowboys did not ask to be on Hard Knocks. They were notified that they had been selected and are complying. That, according to Team Vice President Stephen Jones, quote.
There's a guy on TV screaming about him all the time.
Right? We kind of got informed we were doing it. It wasn't a lot of asking, so it sounds like more telling there. The first episode will air Tuesday, August 1st. The Cowboys report to training camp in Oxnard tomorrow. And they're excited about it, Stephen A. They feel like it's a great opportunity after everything that happened with COVID, etc. So
look at that.
His face. I already can't. I can't take his face. First of all, I will be watching this. I have HBO Max, and I can't wait. And we're going to be discussing this. Okay, Stephen A., so you better be watching the show. That's all I got to say. Are the Cowboys on Hard Knocks must-see TV, in your opinion?
You mean must-see TV during training camp during the summertime? Now, let me get this straight. My buddy, Southern Steve's in the building here for a second. Let me understand this. Let me understand this so I'll make myself clear. Am I to understand that Jerry Jones, that multi-billion-dollar tycoon that owns the Dallas Cowboys, that dude was forced to be on Hard Knocks for HBO Max? Am I to understand that? Yes. I mean, he had no say whatsoever. Stephen Jones had no say whatsoever. They're just innocent victims that were thrusted into the spotlight of their volition at all. Huh? That's what I'm supposed to understand.
Yes.
Okay, no problem at all. All I would tell you is this. When I thought about the Dallas Cowboys, and I said Dallas Cowboys are Hard Knocks, I thought about them being on in 2002, if I remember correctly, right? What happened that year? I think they went like 5-11 that season that they ended up on Hard Knocks, right? And then they showed up in 2008. How did they finish that year after doing Hard Knocks? I think they were 8-8. Both times they missed the playoffs, mind you. Both times they missed the playoffs. So you know what? Just like I gave them the nickname Christmas because they're the gift that keeps on giving. That's who the Dallas Cowboys are at Christmas. You know what I'm going to call this version of Hard Knocks? Soft Knocks. That's what I'm going to call it. Soft Knocks. That's who they are. Soft Knocks on HBO Max. Listen, let me tell you something. That's what it is. It's Soft Knocks.
What are you talking about, their defense?
I mean, please. Listen, what the Dallas Cowboys are? I mean, it's beautiful. Don't you see it? The Dallas Cowboys get headlines again. This is what they're Super Bowl champions at. Stealing headlines, showing up. I mean, it's training camp that's about to begin. We know they got a Hall of Fame game coming up against the Pittsburgh Steelers. They're in the national spotlight. Dak Prescott is back all healthy and everything. All of that stuff is true. But in the end, it don't amount to a damn thing. It's the same old typical Cowboy stuff. And then, oh, by the way, Michael Irvin, the playmaker, the Hall of Famer, Mr. Pom Pom himself, that Michael Irvin, he was even getting on them because they don't even have the decency to make sure they vaccinated. This is what's going on with the Dallas Cowboys. All of these little crumbs, all of these little ingredients sprinkled everywhere to show you that something is going to get in the way of their success. They don't even have the decency to be on HBO. They on HBO Max, which, by the way, has good content on there, by the way.
It has
Not
great
sitting there throwing shade on them.
Great content. I just bought it.
They've got great content. I like it. I mean, listen, ESPN Plus, Disney Plus. No, nobody beats that. But they've got HBO Max, which is a plus.
ESPN Max.
But the bottom line is they're Soft Knocks, Max. Soft Knocks. That's what they are. You know what I'm saying? I'm gonna get Jay-Z to sing. I'm gonna get Jay-Z to sing. It's a hard knock life for us. I'm gonna get Jay-Z to do. That's what I'm getting him to do.
Or get Jay-Z to say somehow, some way. The Cowboys get it done.
The reason it's perfect, too, is last year, the Cowboys had one of the worst defenses of all time. It's perfect.
Yeah. That's right.
Yeah. They allowed a franchise worse, I think, about 30 points per game. Yes.
I got to think about it, Molly.
That is accurate.
Max and Molly, I got to really think about it. I mean, this might be, I can't decide whether to call them Christmas or Soft Knocks all year long. I mean, I got two good options. I got to think about that.
I can't wait.
Christmas or Soft Knocks?
Which one, Max?
Do
you see this man behind me? Do you see this suit I have on? I think they're ready to do something this year, and that's coming from a Giants fan. That's coming from a Giant. Sure. I do.
All right, we need to have a private conversation.
Okay. We need to go to break. It's just
Saquon's coming
Soft
back.
knock
It's
out.
got defense.
No, but it's just Stephen A. You know,
Soft
I can't help
wins.
myself. All right, we'll leave it
That's
there,
the funniest
guys.
thing I heard all day.
When we come
It's a
back, and
soft knock
Aaron
life
Rodgers,
for us.
oh my goodness, turned down a deal to become the highest paid quarterback in the NFL. That tells us everything we need to know why Shefty says it's not about. Breaking news from Adam Schefter tweeting this offseason, the Packers offered Aaron Rodgers a 2-year contract extension that would have tied him to Green Bay for 5 more seasons and paid him, and he'd become the highest paid quarterback and player in the National Football League. Rodgers declined the offer, proof it's not about the money. Stephen A., does this mean Rodgers leaves the Packers?
Eventually it does. It means he's dogged about not being there. Obviously, if he changes his mind, we'll all be wrong, but that's what I'm inclined to believe. And as I reiterated at the top of the show, it's never been about the money, in terms of him, because he was getting paid and he was going to get paid no matter where he ended up, because he's a superstar in this league and at the moment the reigning league MVP. This is about the way his bosses has treated him. And that's what this comes down to. And I, for one, am not going to allow any NFL analyst to come on here again talking about football when it comes to Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers. You're not getting away with this anymore. We're not going to pretend that it's about football. It's not about football. It's about the way that he was treated. You know, when you're on television, as you both know, because you're right there in studio, you have, camera folks and producers that are behind the scenes and stuff like that. Well, I'm here in Milwaukee, right here in Wisconsin, and I've asked people sitting around here with me, and you just ask questions because it's really rhetorical. It's common sense. If you have enough money, and on top of it all, more money is coming down the pike no matter where you go, and you have a boss that has treated you like trash in your mind. They have minimized you, they have disrespected you, they have marginalized you, they have dismissed you to your face and behind your back. What are you going to do? At some point in time, you're going to say, enough's enough. And I know that we got Jeff Saturday about to come on here, and respectfully, because I love me some Jeff Saturday, even though he tries to make my A list a B list when he knows good and damn well it's an A list. But that's my man right there.
We miss Jeff Saturday.
And let's keep in mind, we're not just talking about a champion. We're not just talking about a brilliant NFL mind. We're talking about, in Jeff Saturday, one of the more highly respected individuals we've seen in terms of NFL players. Just go back to the days when they were negotiating CBA agreements with him and Mr. Kraft and others. We all know the respect that Jeff Saturday commands. So I ask a simple question to you, Jeff, respectfully. As a guy that's an alum of the NFL that have played in the league for years, if an owner, a boss in the National Football League dismissed you, marginalized you, treated you with disrespect, acted like you was just some other dude, and you knew that you were a star or what have you, and this is how they treated you for years, what is there to talk about in regards to football when it comes to that particular boss? Isn't it true that we get to a point where we're like, wait a minute, we're men, and there's but so much more of this I'm going to take?
Yeah, listen, I think you make great points, right? And I think what Shefty reported this morning about, the extension, why would he want to extend there, right? Like that didn't even make sense, right? That's not even playing towards the conversation he's had. The one thing he's been clear and direct about is, I don't want to play for Green Bay. I mean, so he made that very clear. Now the situation is, how do you exit Green Bay and compromise, because you are you still have 3 years on your deal, so there's going to have to be some compromise to be able to get out of this situation that you no longer want to be in. And listen, I understand what you're saying about this has been a personal attack for Aaron Rodgers and he's fed up, and all that is true. But ultimately, they have your rights for the next 3 years. He wants to play football. He is a competitive son of a gun. Look, I've suited up with him. I've been in the huddle. That guy wants to play ball. He wants to go win another championship. So if it requires him having to play in Green Bay for one more year to get the other 2 years off, that's what it's going to have to be. Or he's going to have to just completely sit. And listen, I think, in my opinion, he's sitting for regular season games early, right? Because he does have, and this is the attachment issue we talk about, Stephen A. He has attachments to his players. He has attachments to his coaching staff. Like, those are true relationships that he cares about, and he knows for the betterment of all those guys, he playing matters, right? He has to play for them to get to where every one of those guys know they can get to, and that's the Super Bowl. Played in the NFC Championship the last 2 years. The rub here, and to your point, is you're going to have to play for people that you do not like, and that's just part of it, you know. And again, when you're in a contract the way you are in the NFL, he has the 3 years remaining. He's going to have to compromise to get what he wants, which is ultimately get out of Green Bay. But this is a relational issue, to your point, and I fully agree. Much bigger than football. This is relational from Mark and Mark Murphy and you know, the general manager, the front office as a whole, where they have failed Aaron Rodgers.
Well, just like there's a Stephen B list. Is that a Jeff Friday take? Wait a minute, Jeff Saturday. Hold on a second. Why does Aaron Rodgers have to compromise?
That's a good one, Max.
I understand.
I like that. I like that Jeff Friday.
Well, I had to do something after soft knocks.
That's a good one. I like that one, Max. I'm going to actually take that one, Max. Jeff Saturday, when he get on my nerves, I'm going to call him Jeff Friday. That's a great one, Max. That's a great one.
Those 2 best days of the week.
Right.
Jeff, the point is, like, I get that there are cap implications and all that. But if a guy doesn't want to play, I don't think. Let me ask you. Let me pose it as a question. Is it possible in the NFL, in a full contact sport like football, guys down in the trenches, is it possible to win a Super Bowl with a quarterback who does not want to be there?
Yes.
You can win a Super Bowl with a quarterback who doesn't want to be there.
Absolutely.
I'm shocked by that answer.
Listen, because
Thursday with that answer.
His talent. Listen, his ability to play the game. When he walks out there, he ain't thinking about the front office. He's thinking about the business at hand, and that is success for he and the guys around him. And you can definitely compartmentalize those things. Players do it all the time. You come to the end of your contract, you have a rub with a general manager, you know you're not going to get re-signed. This happens every day in the NFL. This is not something new. It's rare to see it on this scale with Aaron Rodgers, but there are greater implications. When you think about him not playing at all, you know, going back and getting your signing bonus, all the things and all the distractions that become for him, does he not want to play again? That's going to be the biggest question, because in my opinion, he wants to play. So there has to be a compromise, Max, with the Green Bay Packers because of what his contract says, to be able to get out and get what he wants.
In other words, wait, Jeff, I just want clarity.
You absolutely can.
I want clarity on this. Are you saying there has to be a compromise because the cap hit would be too big this year, so they can work something out like what Adam Schefter alluded to? Maybe he plays this year and then they let him out next year simply because of the cap hit?
Correct.
Or are you saying he has to? Okay, not that he has to compromise because he's simply under contract. It's the cap hit.
No. Yeah, for all of those things, that's why it would make sense for him to compromise, to shorten the contract and be able to get out.
Well, a couple of things. Number one, Max, when you bring up Jeff Friday, I'd like to remind the audience there was a character named Joe Friday, Sergeant Friday from the movie Dragnet, played by Dan Aykroyd. I actually loved that movie. It was hilarious. So I could call Jeff Saturday Sergeant Friday anytime I want to get on him. That's number one. Number two, again, that's something in terms of the cap hit and what have you. That's something that we've discussed a lot on this show. And I get the football implications, the financial ramifications, and why them having his rights is the only reason this is even a discussion, because we all know that if Aaron Rodgers was a free agent, he'd already be in another uniform. He wouldn't even be a Green Bay Pack anymore. We get all of that. The reason why I keep bringing it up is because everybody tries to deduce Jeff, 13-3 back-to-back seasons, trip to the NFC Championship game in back-to-back years. Let's crystallize this. Aaron Rodgers has a problem with Coach Matt LaFleur because he doesn't believe that Matt LaFleur accepts and embraces accountability. Not that he believes he's a bad guy. He gets along with them. but he believes he could do a better job of accepting accountability, and he doesn't. He has a problem with Brian Gutekunst the way that he had a problem with Ted Thompson, because both of them worked under Mark Murphy, and Mark Murphy, we've seen evidence of how he's all about covering his behind and that of the Green Bay Packers. The manner in which they treated him, I do not understand, Jeff, why guys like yourself and others, even though you guys have articulated your positions and you know your football, I don't understand why y'all haven't put more of an emphasis on the behavior that they have accorded to Aaron Rodgers when you consider the times that we're living in, the culture and how it's changed to some degree, and how player empowerment appears to be more in vogue in the NFL at this particular moment in time than it has ever been. I don't understand why y'all have not talked about that more to really highlight what Green Bay has done to that man. Why hasn't that happened, Jeff? Enough.
Listen, I think we have talked about it. I've made it very clear that Green Bay dug themselves into this hole, right? Relationships matter. I'm a center with the Colts for 13 years. They told me every time they were going to draft a center or a guard who may try to impact my position. And I always appreciate that. Bill Polian would tell me, hey, listen, this is what we're going to do. And I used to tell Bill, hey, man, it's a wasted pick, baby, because he's going to be watching me, so you better find somebody else you want to go get. And it was always good dialogue back and forth, right, between Bill and myself. Why they got to the position they did and moving up to draft Jordan Love and not making that known to Aaron Rodgers, and then all the fallout that you've talked about that has since occurred, it's 100% on the Green Bay Packers. I'm not trying to diminish how they got here and what they did, but what I can't overlook, Stephen A., is his age and the implications of him playing well and having to go somewhere this year. Not next year. I'm talking about when everybody's talking about they're going to trade him now and do. Listen, it's hard to go into a new camp. It's hard to do all those things, all those adjustments. What I'm saying is, if he has to play for 1 year to be able to get out of that contract, it would be a compromise that I would be willing to take if I'm Aaron Rodgers. You shorten my contract, I'll come in, play 17 games, I'm going to play lights out. Hey, I'm out. I'll see you, man.
I agree with that.
In Green Bay, we're heading to our next team. But that's what you have to do if you want to get the rest of that contract taken care of.
Gentlemen, let me get in here. A busy day for Adam Schefter because I have more breaking news from him right now. And it is devastating news for LA. Rams running back Cam Akers has suffered a torn Achilles while working out. Testing confirmed confirmed the injury. He'll miss the entire 21 season. It's a huge blow for LA. They're losing their leading rusher a week before camp begins. I'll start with you here, Stephen A. And we talked a lot about what LA could potentially do, right? And obviously having a new quarterback in Matthew Stafford. What are your thoughts now on the Rams season? What do they do?
Well, it's a devastating blow, no doubt about it. They had a two-headed monster at the running back position with Akers and Darrell Henderson last year. Both rushed for over 600 yards, but both averaged at least 4 yards a carry. Darrell Henderson is still there last time I checked, unless some injury has happened to him that I missed and didn't know about. I think he's still there, so I don't think that I think that you're still not completely decimated at the position. It's sad that this happened to Cam Akers because I thought he had a lot of potential. The kid's a stud, and I'm really sorry to him. The best to him and his loved ones. I hope that he recovers, makes a full recovery. But in the end, do I expect it to be devastating? Again, Henderson is still there. You can go out and find another running back. You still got Woods. You still got Kupp. You still got that number one defense against the pass, number one in yards allowed, number one in points allowed, and number three against the rush, with all of those brothers returning. So I'm still going to tell you that I don't think that this sways the Los Angeles Rams that dramatically, even though it's not a good thing. No question about that.
Usually, I would say a running back injury doesn't sway it that dramatically, as you mentioned, especially if you have depth there at a good level. In this case, the Rams have Super Bowl aspirations right now. That's why they traded Goff who was a former number one overall, with 2 firsts and a third to bring in Stafford. Cam Akers was a guy, you can't say he was there yet, but Jeff, watching Cam Akers in the second half of last year, he seemed to me, we were just talking about the best running backs in football, and I believe Saquon coming back will be number one. I think McCaffrey number 2. Stephen A., I think you said it was Kamara, right? Like, Akers is to me, about to join that kind of group. I thought he had a chance to be a top 5-6 back this year, the way he closed out last season. And when you put a guy like that on this Rams team with Stafford on that defense, you're thinking they're among the handful of teams that are favorites to win the Super Bowl. I don't know if it changes the odds dramatically, but I know I personally think a little less of their chances right now.
Absolutely. I think this is a big hit for them. And to your point, Akers came on so strong at the end of last year. And if you think about the way Sean McVay designs his offense, that running game is not only the quarterback's best friend, it's the defense's best friend as well. And they do as good a job as anybody with motions and formations to really set up those runs. And you saw Akers he just fell in line and fell in love with the way that offense runs. And he was going to be vital in this offense this year. I think this is a devastating blow. Again, I think it's bigger than what you guys are making. I think it shakes this team up. You brought Stafford in, but you needed Akers in his performance. The good thing is, if there is the underlining, is when it happens, maybe you can go out and find a guy right now that can come in and before the season starts and get acclimated to this team, because that's a hurry for a running back.
A lot of options, guys, that. A lot of options, but I'll say this. It hasn't been the same since Todd Gurley stopped being Todd Gurley, right? Akers looked like he could be Todd Gurley for this team.
But can I say this?
That's right.
Let me say this real quick because I know we got to go. Let me say this real quick. You just acquired Matthew Stafford, who's supposed to be an upgrade from Goff, who's starving for his opportunities, never even won a playoff game. I understand that Akers is a big loss, but I don't want to hear that nonsense. If you're Matthew Stafford, you still got enough to get it done.
But
by the way,
in his defense, I know a lot's on the table there for Matthew Stafford, but in his defense, this would have helped taking the pressure off him.
Yeah. By the way,
now he's in a brand new offense, and he can't just hand it off to a guy that's been there.
Now Akers could have been like the new Todd Gurley, but guess who's available right now? Todd Gurley. Like the actual Todd Gurley, Le'Veon Bell, these guys, Adrian, there are a lot of brand name guys. They're not Akers right now, but there are a lot of brand name guys. Jeff, I see you shaking your head no.
No. I'm not shaking it.
No, Jeff was saying no.
McVay is going to be looking for fresh legs, young guy who comes in and becomes a team guy. He's not looking for the piece. He's looking for a piece. And to Stephen A's point, man, I feel awful for Akers. Wish him the best in healing up. But I think this will be a finding a guy, not trying to find the guy.
Yeah, makes sense. All right, we'll leave it there. When we come back, guys, for being one of the NBA's youngest superstars, Devin Booker is in the making and are scheduled to open this Friday. But with COVID cases rising in Japan and over 70 positive cases at the Olympics already, the head of organizing committee for the Games did not rule out a last-minute cancellation, and this certainly would be last minute. Toyota announcing on Monday that it's pulling Olympics-related TV advertising in Japan during the Games. That's because of polling showing a majority of Japan's population opposed to the Games being played. However, they will continue to advertise in other markets, including right here in the United States. Max, should Team USA back out of the Olympics?
No, I don't think right now. I wouldn't say so. I would say, guys, that vaccinations seem to work. And what I mean by work is we're hearing a lot about the Delta variant, and I don't claim to be an expert in it, and I don't know how many people are given the newness, but as to my understanding, hospitalizations are, the overwhelming majority of them are from the unvaccinated. So the vaccines seem to be working. And for that reason, Stephen A., I don't see why, if our athletes want to compete and there will be an Olympic Games, they shouldn't be allowed to compete. My caveat would be if they're vaccinated. Unless you have a real good medical reason not to get vaccinated, it should be required if you want to go compete. And that, if I made the rules, I would say that if our athletes are vaccinated, Stephen A., twice, they get, Pfizer, Moderna, whatever you get, you're fully vaccinated. You quarantine after you get there, you get tested and everything before you come back and all that, and quarantine again. It seems to me that we should be okay, and our athletes should be okay based on the evidence, that we presently have. So I just don't feel at this point, if there will be an Olympics, and our athletes are vaccinated and they'll be tested, why they should be denied the opportunity if they want to go and compete.
Max and Molly work with me on this because I'm usually more definitive in my opinions. It's hard for me to be that way here because I need to learn more. What I will say, Max and Molly, is this. We're talking about the Tokyo Olympics. We're talking about a populace that, what did they say? I think the number was 21% vaccinated. Is that accurate? I'm not sure.
I don't know off the top of my head, Stephen.
I don't know. I thought I read that somewhere. I don't know. What I will tell you is this. Molly, you introed the subject by highlighting for us that most of the people there don't want the Olympics.
Oh, yeah, I had
because of.
Oh, go ahead. I thought you wanted the quote. Go ahead.
Yeah, because of what has transpired. And so my attitude is this. There is a global pandemic taking place, and the local population is so concerned about it that they don't want the Olympics. That's enough for me to strongly consider cancellation. When you have 70 cases, when you have the international community descending upon one province, one area, and that area, people, the inhabitants there, they don't want it. That's something that we should be taking into consideration. Now, maybe that's not the definitive that's not the definitive reason why that should, where it says, okay, that's the reason we're not going to have the Olympics, or we're not going to care about this, or we're going to have the Olympics. That's one of the strongest reasons to consider postponing or flat out canceling the games. But then we also have to take into consideration, Max, what we just alluded to about how you have people just here in this country alone. We can only speak about the United States, intelligently as far as I'm concerned in terms of what we're experiencing here, what we've endured here, and what we know based on the reports that we've read, et cetera, et cetera. We've got a lot of folks here that the President Biden had said that, he had hoped that by July 4th, that 70% of the American population would be vaccinated. And the number hadn't even reached 50%. We just heard Paul Feinbaum talk about, how there's so many people in the South that don't believe in vaccinations, haven't been vaccinated. We just talked about the SEC, to get micro here, where in terms of SEC football, only 6 of the 14 teams have received 80% vaccination, so the other 8 have not. And so if we're talking about just that in this country, and then in other countries, you're either having people make those choices, or there are people who would like to be vaccinated, but there aren't enough vaccines to distribute and disseminate to the masses. Well, now we're talking about essentially, potentially endangering the world. We can talk about all the things, all the safety precautions and measures that the Olympics have put in play to ensure that, things don't become worse. But there is the Delta variant out there, which we're learning more about each and every single passing day, how it's potentially more contagious, how if you haven't been vaccinated, it can really harm you, how contagious it is, et cetera, et cetera. At a time like that, do we need to do anything global?
Maybe not,
I would question that. I don't know.
Maybe not.
I would question it, though.
I think it's a legitimate question. I also don't think that we're necessarily responsible for the vaccination rates of the populations of other countries, although certainly we can help because
I'm not saying we are.
We have a lot of vaccines, but as long as our athletes are vaccinated and precautions are taken, if the Olympics does go on and our athletes want to compete and they've been vaccinated, I'm not against them competing.
Yeah, but they're not mandating that everyone be vaccinated, and that's where the problem
That's why
lies.
I'm bringing that exactly. That's why I'm bringing that up.
Stephen A., the IOC president said last week 85% of the Olympic Village residents are vaccinated, 100% of the IOC members, but obviously, yes, the athletes are not required. And I just reported the 70 cases.
Molly, as a person that covered the Olympics, I covered the Olympic Games in Sydney, Australia in 2000. And then again in 2004 in Athens, Greece. I covered both of those Olympics, as a reporter for the Philadelphia Inquirer. And I'm here to tell you something. You could talk about the IOC. You could talk about the folks in Olympic Village. If you don't mandate that athlete is vaccinated and you have athletes coming from all over the world.
Correct.
That is a problem.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's a problem.
And just because you're vaccinated doesn't mean that you can't catch it either.
That's right. But the hospitalizations and deaths they're finding are overwhelmingly unvaccinated.
To Stephen A's point,
yes, absolutely.
It's not foolproof. All right. Still to come on First Take. Our boy Kendrick Perkins has a thing or two he'd like to get off his chest. I need some perk in my life about CP3. Perk's must-hear take on Chris Paul. Plus,
it ain't always been sweet for me. I've always had to grind.
It only matters where your heart's at.
16 years, surgeries, losses, bad losses. We're going to enjoy tonight.
Everybody want to tell you everything you can't do. They ain't never step foot in your shoes. I'ma tell you anything you want, you can get it. Chase your dreams like you really can't lose.
Everything we want's on the other side of hard. It don't get no harder than this.
Follow your dream.
I like that. Kendrick Perkins with us. What's going on, Perk? Good to see you, sir.
How you doing, Molly? What's up, Stephen A? What's up, Max?
What up?
All right, let's go, guys. So Big Perk with a big take on the desperation turnaround needed for Chris Paul. Take a listen.
CP3 needs CPR. He has to wake the hell up. And I'm not talking about from a number standpoint, right? I'm talking about him as being a leader, bringing that tenacity. We already know in his sleep he could get you 20 and 10, but I haven't seen the same sense of urgency. And when you look at CP3, you talk about these young Phoenix Suns and the core of this group, they follow CP3. We heard DeAndre Ayton say the best thing happened for his career was CP3 coming to Phoenix because he put that dog into him. He installed that killer mentality. And right now, CP3 is not showing us that he's a killer.
Stephen A., you agree with Kendrick that CP3 needs CPR?
Well, I agree with his overall point that CP3 needs to do more. And it's not just about numbers because he's averaging 20 and 11, shooting better than 50% from the field in three-point range. You know what? I think that the most glaring thing is what Kendrick Perkins actually missed. If you think about CP3 and what we talk about, what do we talk about, KP? What do we talk about, Max? We talk about him being what I use as what I call the quintessential point guard, the kind of guy that comes out of the womb and looks tailor-made to play this position. And what is a true point guard? The true point guard is the person that makes the people around him better, that maximizes the skill set that's available to him, that peels out whatever exists inside of you to make you all that you can be, not just as an individual, but as a team. And when you look at it from that perspective, and you look at Phoenix right now, that's not what we're seeing. No matter how good DeAndre Ayton has been, there's something more you can get out of him. We need to see that. No matter how great Devin Booker has been over these last two games, there's certain things that he could do a little bit better, like his decision making and not trying to play hero ball every single minute he's on the floor. The most glaring thing to me, Kendrick Perkins, about CP3, and Max and Molly knows where I'm going with this. My God, Cameron Johnson can shoot the damn basketball. How in God's name does this guy average 24 minutes a game this series? And over the course of 5 games, he's taken a grand total of 30 shots with his shot-making ability, shooting better than 45% from three-point range, better than 47% if I remember correctly. How in God's name does that guy not see the basketball? To me, I'm looking at CP3, I'm looking at Devin Booker, and they're looking to make plays, particularly for themselves. And this guy, Cameron Johnson, is standing out there wide open, waving for the ball, and neither of them find him. That's my issue with CP3 right now. Get Cameron Johnson the damn basketball. That's my issue.
I mean, this is a debate show, but you're both right. You're both right. When the Suns were going real well in the first couple games, everyone was touching the ball. That sometimes more than once on a possession, they were getting easy buckets, right? And it was like Chris Paul picked up in that sense where he left off in the last series. And Perk, you're right on about what you said, in my opinion. But I just want to point this out. And I know you're not saying it's written in stone, the series is over. You're saying he needs to wake up. But let me just point this out. These dudes are writing their legacies right now. The reason sports is the greatest programming, the reason it's the greatest reality TV, is that these legacies are it's not scripted. These guys write the script. And I'll remind everybody, in the conference finals, even like the Lakers are hurt, so they get by the Lakers. Denver's hurt. Denver didn't have a chance without Jamal Murray. Then no Kawhi Leonard. And it looked like still they might lose to the Clippers without Kawhi Leonard. Oh, no, Chris Paul, not this year. Even this year you can't get it done, even with this squad? And what was worse is he missed the first 2 games, and that's when they played their best basketball, and campaign looked great, and the offense looked great with him. Then Chris Paul comes back, and they look worse. Oh, no, this is going to be a disaster. You could have said the same thing about Chris Paul at that point in time. Then he came out in Game 6 and had one of the greatest performances you ever want to see to bring his team to the finals. He rewrote the script. He flipped the script just like that. So I'm saying, Perk, you're right about Chris Paul right now. I can't believe the foul on Giannis at the end of that game. And Stephen A., you say, well, it's a basketball play. Don't let him score. But there was no way he was going to stop him from scoring. He has to know that. You can't give him the ball back on the free throw line down 3 points with 15 seconds left. My point is this. He can still correct it. If he has a Game 6 like the one he had in the conference finals against the Clippers, this is going to a Game 7. He can win the championship. He is writing his legacy right now.
Yeah, look, Max and Stephen A., y'all both make good points, but let me educate y'all on what I was saying, and let me elaborate even more about what I'm talking about for us with Chris Paul, right? We all know how hard it is to get to the finals. Ask Chris Paul. It took him 16, 17 years to get there. He's finally there. What I'm saying is when you get to this moment, you have to embrace this moment. You have to feel this moment that like you'll never get this moment again. And right now when I'm watching CP3, he's not giving us that. Yes, okay, we know he could get the 20 and 10. He's just that good of a player. But when I talk about his leadership skills, when I talk about him being the enforcer from the point guard position, putting that dog into the whole team, putting that IQ into the whole team. Max, what you always talk about, when it matters the most, guess what? It matters the most. And right now, when you get down to the finals of Game 6, it's not about schemes. It's not about X's and O's. It's about who wanted the most. You look at Drew Holiday and you look at CP3, and to me, Drew Holiday wants it the most. I'm watching in Game 5, CP3 going stand in the corner in the fourth quarter, stand in the corner, shy away from the ball on the offensive end, not go and get the ball and set up a staggered double screen like he did, I believe, in Game 1 or Game 2 when he had DeAndre Ayton and he had Devin Booker setting the screen, Devin Booker getting a wide open shot assisted by CP3. I'm watching CP3 guard Cuttington in the corner on the defensive end while Drew Holiday is going to work. Why is you not taking this matchup personal at this moment when it matters the most, the biggest stage of the NBA Finals? This is what I'm asking for when I'm talking about CP3.
Well, I don't think, I have no problem with what you're asking for. I think all is reasonable, and these are things that we've come to expect from CP3. But I also think that we have to be realistic about the level of limitations that he may have. Kendrick Perkins, you even highlighted how Drew Holiday, the transition for this Milwaukee Bucks team was when Budenholzer put Drew Holiday on CP3 and was picking him up 75 to 90 feet. It talked about noticing those 36-year-old legs, talking about age and attrition kicking in, particularly when you got a guy that's younger, bigger, stronger, faster, guarding him. And so you've got that obstacle to deal with. Then you've got dudes on the interior that are trees in a Giannis Antetokounmpo, in a Brook Lopez, with a Bobby Portis coming off the bench. That's another impediment. Then you've got guys engaging in hero ball. Now that's where CP3 really comes in, because that's the kind of thing he can dictate. He can talk about making them work, making them move, sharing the basketball, trusting your teammates. Those are the kind of things that CP3 can do to help facilitate things offensively for the Phoenix Suns, where the Milwaukee Bucks don't get to stand around and lurk and wait. Instead, they got to have their head on a swivel because the ball is constantly moving. That's the way you can overcome or offset the size and height and athletic advantage to some degree that Milwaukee may have. But in the end, I also point back to what I initially pointed to. Other than Devin Booker, who do you have that's a reliable perimeter threat for the Phoenix Suns? Bridges has had a good game here or there, but for the most part, he's been sporadic. Who has consistently shot the ball well throughout this series, despite coming off the bench cold, is a guy by the name of Cameron Johnson, who, by the way, played at the University of North Carolina, who, by the way, has shown on countless occasions that the big moment doesn't faze him. And he's open. He's hit contested shots. He's hit open shots. It's almost like they're holding his youth against him instead of rolling tapes and seeing that historically, whether it's MJ, whether it's Kobe and others, the stars usually find somebody else that can put the ball in the hole when they're open. Give it to them. And that's what they should be doing when it comes to this kid.
And Stephen A., I'm going to go even further, and I'm going to say the tides have turned. When we were questioning Mike Budenholzer at the beginning of the season, I think it's time for us to question Monty Williams a little bit. We can't just let him off the hook. And when we talk about Cam Johnson, we talk about that substitution in Game 4 when he took him out and put Mikal Bridges in when Cam Johnson was the other person besides Devin Booker making shots. We could talk about DeAndre Ayton on my last point, being able to have those mismatches down low. The brother went 7 for 12 from the field with 20 points, and they couldn't find to give him the ball in the paint when he have a smaller guy like Drew Holiday and P.J. Tucker on him. So I think Monty Williams has to get some of this blame as well.
I agree.
All right, Big Perk, who you got tonight? One word.
I got the Suns. I got the Suns. I think they're going to force a Game 7.
One word, one word. All right, Big Perk, good to see you. We will talk to you soon.